It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
From the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York, I'm Bill Calogero. It's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you listen, whenever you're watching. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Go all the way to St. Simon's if you don't live near there for an authentic Italian meal. That's what I do. So don't miss it. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Holiday Inn Properties. That's right. If you're traveling anywhere in the United States, make sure when you're ready to go see-peace that you stay at a Holiday Inn property. Not only is it a great place, but you get a Billy C discount. What's better than that, man? Listen, make your reservation today for any Holiday Inn property. Just dial toll-free, 844-603-0364, 844-603-0364. Or if you're like me and can't remember numbers, just go to our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Holiday Inn banner. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. Coming up a little bit later in the week, like tomorrow, we'll be doing our Blast from the Past. This week's Blast from the Past, former multi-division world champion, and I don't know, what do we call him? A guy that a movie was about? I don't know. Vinny Pazienza is who we're going to be talking about tomorrow as per request, so make sure you tune in for tomorrow's show. We also are scheduled to have Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazard join us, as he usually does on Wednesdays. Today, I got a bunch of stuff to talk about, but we're going to start off with our post-fight shows. Concerning the big fights from this past weekend. I got Dax Khan scheduled to join us in a little bit, and also Sal Rocky Senacola. But first, let me start off by saying this. Let's kick it off with Daniel Jacobs' fight. The Daniel Jacobs fight between him and Maciej Sulecki. Now, thank God a funny thing happened to me while I was trying to watch that fight. The first thing was, I had my DVR set, and the next morning I get up, I get up at 4 a.m, so I wanted to watch. I didn't know the results or nothing because that's the way it is. And I look on my DVR, and it didn't record. It recorded it in HBO Latino. So here I am, I'm starting to watch the fight in Spanish, right? Which, I found interesting because I didn't have to listen really or pay attention to the BS that usually comes out of the announcers' mouths, right? But then it cut off after the second round of Daniel Jacobs. So luckily, HBO always replays the fights early in the morning, so I was able to watch it. And I learned that the pronunciation of, which I thought was Sulecki's last name, is Sulecki It has a silent N and S. Okay, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jacobs improved to 34 wins and 2 losses, with 29 of his wins coming by knockout. In a pretty entertaining fight. Sulecki dropped his first fight of his career, 26-1 now with 10 knockouts. The way the judges scored it, 116-111, 117-110, and 115-112, all in favor of Jacobs. It depends how you looked at the fight, because Sulecki was counterpunching very effectively in this fight. If the guy had more pop behind his punches, I think it would have been a different fight. I also noticed some things about Daniel Jacobs. He looked so big in his fight against Triple G. Not so much against Sulecki. Now, I don't know if Sulecki was bigger than he looked or what, or if it was just this time Daniel Jacobs actually had to make the weight, because if you recall, he didn't even try to make the weight the last time. So I thought that it was an entertaining fight. Daniel Jacobs, hey, what isn't there to like about him? Joining me right now to get his thoughts on that fight is Sal Rocky Senecola. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you today, buddy?
Not too bad, my friend. What did you think of Daniel Jacobs against Sulecki?
Well, what can I say? I think Daniel Jacobs just shows why he's one of the guys on top. I thought he did a fabulous job. And I'll tell you what, though. I became a big fan of Sulecki. I liked what I saw with him. He is definitely a combatant, and he was striving to win that fight. And he, even though I even scored about 116, 111 or so, but I think the fight was a lot closer than what the scores may reflect. What I mean by that is Sulecki was in the fight, and as you suggested, if he had a little pop in his punch, it might have been a different story. But Daniel Jacobs did a fabulous job, as we would assume that he would have done, and he rose to the occasion. He did what he had to do.
That's a win. A win is a win.
It's a win. A win is a win.
It makes you wonder. We're always talking about fighters that will step in the ring and it appears to be an easy opponent, and then all of a sudden they're in a tough fight. That's why we're always saying about the risk versus the reward. I personally did not think that this fight was going to be as entertaining and somewhat competitive. Now, I say somewhat, Sal, because like you, I was impressed with Sulecki, but I don't know if I agree with the close score. I know that they were trying to make it sound like that, especially Max Kellerman. I mean, he's become the guy who disagrees with Harold Letterman, and then you never know about the judges, etc.
Almost like you and I.
Yeah, almost. But the funny thing is I didn't see it close. I thought that Jacobs landed the faster punches. I mean, the harder punches. But I call me crazy, but I thought I noticed a lack of hand speed from Daniel Jacobs, something that has always impressed me, that he does have hand speed. Did you notice that, or was it just Sulecki's awkward-looking style? Because he seemed kind of awkward-looking in the ring. Not that he was delivering his punches awkwardly, but he just seemed to have an awkward style. I don't know. Maybe it was just his look.
Well, that's a good combination of possibilities right there, because, and as I suggested, even though I scored the fight, 116, 111, I overall looked at the fight. I thought it was a little closer or evenly matched. Daniel Jacobs was dominant. Don't misunderstand me. But I think he was in the fight a little closer than what those score would reflect. And I think that Sulecki's style, he was right in that pocket. He was not afraid to trade, and I think that's what made Daniel Jacobs think twice with delivering some of those punches, because he knew that even though Sulecki didn't look like he was going to hurt him, definitely he could have hit him at times when Daniel Jacobs would be using some of those hands. But I thought it was a great fight for both fighters. I think it was a good showcase, and Daniel Jacobs, like I said, you got to love Daniel Jacobs. There's not too much to dislike there.
Now, the other fight on that card that we had to be forced to sit through, was Jarrell Baby Miller. He improved to 21-0 with a draw. when he won a unanimous decision over Johan Duhaupas, who drops his fifth fight. He's now 37-5 with 24 knockouts. There was an elimination title on the line. They call it an elimination title now. 119-109 twice, 117-111. Here's my thoughts, all right? First of all, I've been very critical of Jarrell Baby Miller and his physique, all right? Is he a fat bastard? Yeah. Can he not pass a buffet? No, he can't. Every time he sees a buffet, he's got. Is he a frequent donut flyer at Dunkin' Donuts? Yes. They give him his 7 dozens of donuts every time they see him. But with all of that said, I will tell you this: he moves around pretty good in the ring. I mean, this is a guy that weighed 304 pounds. 304. I think it was 20 pounds heavier than his last fight. And yeah, he had some jiggling going on. He had a little jiggly puff going on. When you get old, you call them love handles. When you're still a fighter, you call it fat. But whatever. But I will say this: he seemed not to tire. And if he's that kind of a guy, if he can go 12 rounds because he seemed still fairly fresh, in my opinion, at the end of the fight, then more power to him. His performance was dominating, but my question to you, Sal, is how much credit do we give him for beating Johan Duhaupas? Johan Duhaupas first of all, he's slow as molasses. He's basically like a human punching bag, a human heavyweight, a human heavy bag that can move around a little and punches back a little. He is extremely slow, not only on his feet, but his hand speed. But I have never seen a guy take so much punishment as this guy. And I mean, it's amazing. It's sad. You wonder what kind of shape he's going to be in fairly quickly after his boxing career. But I mean, how much credit do we give Miller? I mean, this is a guy calling out Anthony Joshua. This is a guy that says he's the best heavyweight in the division. How much credit do we give this guy for beating Johan Duhaupas? And oh, by the way, has not really fought anyone of note yet. What's your thoughts?
Well, you made some good points just right now, and I think valid points. And, for a big man, as Miller is, he was on his toes. He was supple. He moved. He had decent speed in his punches, and he was very dominant. And, yes, if you wanted to showcase a fighter and you wanted an ideal opponent where you can bet he's going to probably waltz through a nice night and have a durable punching bag as your opposition. Well, unfortunately for Duhaupas, he would be that definitive guy. And he went out there. I'm sure he had a different intent. But in the end, I even scored a fight about 119 and 109. And Jarrell Miller, all I could say is my hat's off to him. He did a decent job against Duhaupas. But I will tell you this. I pictured him in a ring with an Anthony Joshua and with my buddy there, Deontay Wilder. And I don't see the fight if Jarrell Miller was to go in the ring with either of those fighters. I don't see the fight going past 8 rounds, and I see Jarrell Miller being stopped or knocked out bad by either one of the champions.
Yeah, well, this is the problem with the sport. You let a guy like Miller climb the ranks literally by facing no one. And you can make the argument about Deontay Wilder too, but Deontay Wilder has that punching power that Miller does not. But then again, Miller does possess some boxing skill that I feel Deontay doesn't. But the truth of the matter is one of the issues I have with the sport is the fact that a guy like Baby Miller can even climb the ranks and be in the discussion to challenge Deontay or AJ as a world heavyweight title challenger when they haven't proved that they could beat any top fighter yet. That's my problem, Sal. Years ago and when boxing was in its heyday, you climbed the ladder. You earned that shot. I can't honestly say that, and focusing just on Jarrell Miller, that he's earned a shot at either of the belts, or I should say either of the champions. I just I just don't feel that he has.
Well, he's on top of the ladder as those climbing status would allow. He's on top there, and these title elimination fights and the different rungs of the ladder, you have to keep continuing on a path to beat and to get up there in a contention. I mean, he's done it, and whether we like it or not, he's going to be in a position. And no disrespect to Jarrell Miller, because, as we suggested, he, for a big guy, I saw him on his toes. He was in very good shape. And sometimes guys just that big, they're used to carrying that weight. And you know what? If he lost 30 pounds, he probably wouldn't be the same fighter. So my hat's off to him. He's effective with what he does and how he does it. But I just think if he was to step in the ring for a title fight against Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua, and I could be wrong because any given night, what could happen. But I do not see him having much success as he did against Duhaupas. I would almost see that these guys would have him in a Duhaupas situation, Baby Miller.
Also on that card, we only got to see, at least for the television broadcast, we only got to see some highlights. But in a unification female fight, Katie Taylor, she looked impressive. This girl is the real deal. She fights very well. She improved to 9-0 with 4 knockouts when she won a 10-round unanimous decision over Victoria Bustos, who drops to 18-5, 99-91 twice, 98-92. So she defended her WBA championship and picked up the IBF title as well. In the most exciting fight of the weekend, in my humble opinion,
I know what you're gonna say, Billy.
Isaac Dogboe. Now, the one thing I did pick up this weekend was the proper pronunciation of some of these names. I thought it was Dogboe. Same thing. I thought Sulecki was Sulecki, but learned because obviously you would have to assume that the commentators would learn how to pronounce the names. But Isaac Dogboe improved to 19-0 with 13 knockouts when he upset, and it was clearly an upset in my opinion, of Jessie Magdaleno, who loses for the first time in his career. He drops to 25-1. If you guys missed this fight, go check it out. Now, it wasn't a display of the sweet science. It wasn't watching somebody float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. This was a downright backyard, let's see who's the tougher guy kind of a fight. And I have found a new fighter that I have fallen in love with, and that is Isaac Dogboe. This is a guy, this backdrop story, I honestly knew nothing about him. The backdrop story, his pops trained him, didn't know nothing about boxing. Picked up, learned themselves. And the guy fought most of his career in Ghana, where his opposition was unknown. I really didn't know, but he talked a lot of smack, and he came in the ring and he put it on the line. He was rocked by Magdaleno in the early in the fight, and came back and rocked Jessie himself. Jessie, I don't know what Jessie was thinking when he's like egging him on. It was like when Jessie was hurt, Sal, he couldn't let his hands go, and he was trying to. I don't know what hold that thought, because I got to take a break. But I want you to try to explain to me what he was doing, because he was clearly in trouble, in my opinion, and was egging Dogboe on. But hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace? Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. Just before we went to break, we were talking about the Isaac Dogboe against Jessie Magdaleno fight. And I just asked you, Sal, what was Jessie Magdaleno thinking when he was in all kinds of trouble and he was doing the mano-a-mano trying to get Dogboe to attack him more? And what I liked about that was that Dogboe obliged and beat the snot out of him a little more. What was he thinking, man?
Well, you know, that's just it. What do you think when you're in that position? I mean, you're on the receiving end. Sometimes your instincts take over from your game plan, and obviously he was hurt, Magdaleno, and you know he did take it. What do you have off over a year? So it was probably a little while since he got his bell rung last, and he did what every fighter in that position, well, not every fighter, but a lot of fighters do, is say, hey, you didn't hurt me. I'm fine. Get over here. Come on, wave him on. And as you suggested, yes, he was obliged by having Dogboe just jump on him. And I'll tell you, hit him with a barrage of punches at any time when he egged him on. Magdaleno did have his moments, and he did fight back. He, you know, as you also said, he dropped Dogboe down in the first round, but from that point on, it was a dog fight on Dogboe's side. He just came at him like, hey, I'm going to show you tonight. Tonight is my night. And for Magdaleno, it proved to be not.
normally a fighter that's trying to show his opponent that you didn't hurt me, that kind of thing, which I agree with you on. It just seemed like it was deeper than that. Not because he wasn't even he wasn't able to throw any punches. He was egging. I'm talking about Magdaleno.
Yeah.
He was egging Dogboe on, and Dogboe came in and was throwing the punches. But generally when a fighter is trying to pretend like they're not hurt, they at least give you something back. And he wasn't. It was almost like. The referee could have waved that fight off, and really, Jessie couldn't have complained. I don't know. It was an extremely entertaining fight. All I can say is this: I want to see more of Isaac Dogboe. I mean, at 20-0 now, this is a guy that's, or maybe 19-0. This is a guy that I want to see a heck of a lot more. I really do. I hope we get to see him sooner than later.
Well, I hope so too. I think a star was born. I mean, he definitely he went in there and we saw what the champions do. They come back. He was dropped. He came right back. He was in the fight. I had him pretty much. Even though it was a close competitive fight, he was leading up until that 11th round when he did knock out or stopped Jessie Magdaleno. So I'll tell you what, he had a great opportunity to show the world of what he was about and what he could do. And guess what? He rose to the occasion, Billy C. And he did put on a display that there's not too many people here that can question. No. He did a great job. I loved both of these fighters in the fight, staying in the pocket, being evasive, slipping some punches, but delivering others, and great counter shots too. It was a great fight.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's how you win fights. You go in and you fight. And that's what these guys did. I loved the fight. Also on that card, Brian Jennings. This was a heavyweight that I really loved at one time. He was climbing the ranks. I always would describe him as a combination of Michael Spinks and Evander Holyfield. He was in great shape, was awkward, smaller than most of the heavyweights today, but man, could he get the job done. His world title shot against Vladimir Klitschko came up short, but he went the distance. And then in a fight that I was ringside for, he fought Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz knocked him out, viciously. And since then, Brian Jennings changed management teams, and he's been carefully moved since then. He fought another Philly fighter in Joey DeWedgeko on the undercard of the Dogboe Magdaleno fight. And I tell you what, Joey DeWedgeko shows a lot of promise. And I was saying this last week. I wish this guy would fight at a lower weight class. Although he did weigh substantially over 200 pounds, and if you look at him, there's some room for slimming down. Because I think if Joey DeWedgeko was fighting at cruiserweight, he would be way more successful. He's in there with monster guys that have now not so much on Saturday with Brian Jennings, but generally with monster guys that are just too much for him size-wise. But he can let his hands go. He's sneakingly fast with his hands. It wasn't enough to beat up Jennings. However, I thought that Brian Jennings looked slow. I did not think that this was the same Brian Jennings that I watched fight Klitschko and watched fight Ortiz and watched fight, guys that he looked good against. He seemed slow in there. But nonetheless, he got the win. And the way the judges scored it, 98-92, all three of them in favor of Brian Jennings. Sal, what was your thoughts on this fight?
Well, I saw some of the highlights of this fight, and just as you suggested, I mean, Brian Jennings, he did what he had to do to win. And DeWedgeko, I think, if he's in against some real big, as you would suggest, super heavyweights, he's going to have his hands full. But maybe a cruiserweight division might be a nice place for him. But Brian Jennings did what he had to do. He won the fight, and from what I saw on there, he looks like he's still getting back what he hopes to start progressing along and getting on the right path for a title shot.
Well, the thing is as the heavyweight division is unfolding and we're looking at, I mean, everybody knows the top two guys, but the rest of them are all in that mix. I see Bryant Jennings seemingly aged, and since the last time I saw him, even in a losing effort. The last time I saw him was the fight, me personally, last time I saw him live was the fight against Luis Ortiz, and he looked way better in that vicious knockout loss than he has since then. So we'll have to keep our eyes on Bryant Jennings. And in another fight that we got to see on TV, Jesse Hart in the super middleweight division improved to 24-1 when he scored a 7th-round stoppage over Denmond Nicholson, who loses really only for the 3rd time in his career. He's 18-3-1 right now. The official time was 2:26 of the 7th. This was an interesting fight. Jesse Hart was the bigger guy fighting for his pops, Cyclone Hart. And was rocked big time in this fight early. Nicholson caught him at the end of a round, and I think it was the 2nd or 3rd round. But in any event, Hart came back strong and very busy and finished Nicholson off. Did you see this fight, Sal?
No, I did not. And I'm sorry I did not. And I'm going to have to go back and look at it. And, when you mentioned Cyclone Hart, that was one of the fighters in my era. And so I'm definitely going to watch this fight with some ready to give some good feedback.
Jesse Hart, no disrespect to him, but again, this is those cases where, you're fighting 20 fights against nobodies, and then they put you in against a couple of somebodies, and you pick up a loss. You don't look that good. I've said it all along. It's not that I expect knockout, drag-out, killer fights every time out, but you have to progressively increase your fighters' opponents. Otherwise, they don't get better. And I think we saw several examples of that this past weekend, in a fight that I picked him because he's my guy. I love watching this kid fight. I didn't really think he was going to win. It was a classic youth versus age, and I'm talking about Josito Lopez, improved to 36-7 with 19 knockouts when he fought a 10-round unanimous decision. He won a unanimous decision over Miguel Cruz, who hadn't been beaten. Miguel drops to 17-1 with 11 knockouts, 99-89 twice, and 98-90. The scores may have been a little closer, but Cruz was deducted not 1 but 2 points for low blows. Josito Lopez has always been a guy that has been forced to fight bigger fighters for the money. He's done it. He's a veteran fighter, and he's still got a little left in the tank. Miguel Cruz, again, looked very good early on, seemed to run out of gas, and maybe this is another example of an undefeated young fighter. And don't get me wrong, Miguel Cruz is you could tell that he's got the talent, but he never fought a guy like Josito Lopez and a tricky veteran like Josito Lopez, and a guy who's been in there with the top-level opposition that Josito Lopez has been in. And one major thing, Josito Lopez is a warrior. This isn't a guy you're just going to go in and just knock out. So I don't know what Team Cruz was thinking, but what a fight. Josito Lopez stays in there, and generally his fights are a little more exciting. But hey, kudos to Josito Lopez for coming out on top. Did you get a chance to see this one?
No, I did not. I got to go watch this one too.
Yeah, you missed a good one, man. So try and check that one out. And also on that card, Claudio Moraro improved to 23-2 with 17 knockouts when he destroyed Jorge Lara, who hadn't been beaten and was beaten and knocked out a little more than a half a minute into the round, 33 seconds, and Lara was knocked out cold. Former middleweight and super middleweight world champion Arthur Abraham improved to 47-6 when he scored a 12-round split decision over the young Patrick Nielsen. Abraham is 38 years old, and he's making one more run at a world title shot. One judge scored it 114, 113 for Nielsen, and the other two had it for Abraham with the same score, 116, 111. And for the vacant European welterweight title, Kermaine Lagaraga improved to 25-0 with 20 knockouts when he took care of Bradley Skeet, who drops the second fight of his career. He's now 27-2 with 12 knockouts. It was a second round knockout for the victor in that one. So we had some decent action-packed fights. We're going to take a short break. When I come back, I got some fights that took place on Friday night, and it was the WBC welterweight tournament. So we'll give you a heads up on that in about 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Hologram USA presents a proposal to all investors. Hologram USA is an innovative three-dimensional patented technology that shifted the paradigm in media technology. Our patented hologram technology that brought you Tupac and Coachella, Whitney Houston, Billie Holiday, and many more is integrating live performances to bring your favorite past and present entertainers beyond your imagination. Invest in the patented technology before the banks scoop up all the stock. Invest in Hologram USA today. Hologram USA Flagship Theater, located on Hollywood Boulevard's Walk of Fame, is the first of many to come. Call now to be part of the explosive growth. Pick up the phone. Dial the number on your screen now. Invest in Hologram USA today. Call the number on your screen right now to learn about this investment opportunity.
Call 800-624-1673. 800-624-1673. Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
Undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And we're wrapping up the fight results from the past weekend. We are going to talk about them a little bit more, especially the top fights, in about a half hour when Dax Khan joins Sal and myself. But Sal, WBC World Invitational welterweight tournament got underway this past weekend. It was on Friday night. And here's how it turned out to set up the semifinals. An alternate fighter, due to an injury, Francisco Santana, he improved to 25-6. With a draw when he took care of 2008 gold medalist Felix Diaz, who was the number 1 seed going into this tournament. He drops to 19-3. It was a unanimous decision. Well, actually, two of the they have extra judges in this. So you had 3 judges scored at 98-92. One had it 96-94. One had it 95-95. When the smoke cleared with all those judges, Sal, Santana won the fight. Chris Van Herden improved to 26-2 with a draw when he beat Timo Schwarzkopf, who drops to 18-2, 98-92 3 times, and 97-93 twice. Frederick Lawson improved to 27-1 when he took care of Bashidio Nashiwula, who drops to 13-2-1. 99-91, 96-94, 98-92, and 2 scored at 97-93. And Brad Solomon, who should kind of be the favorite at this point, he improved to 28-1 when he scored a 10-round split decision over Paddy Gallagher, who drops at 13-4, 97-93, 97-94, 95-94 for Solomon twice, and 96-93 for Gallagher. I don't know how it unfolds, but Solomon won. Francisco Santana against Brad Solomon, and Chris Van Herden against Frederick Lawson in the semifinal. Sal, another tournament that I like the tournament scene, and these are all WBC fighters. I mean, what I like about it is you don't get to really cherry pick. Once everybody's chosen for the tournament, everything else is, you win and you move forward, and you got to fight whoever they put in front of you.
No, I agree, and the tournament scene has always proven to be a good way to weed out some of the fighters and let the cream rise to the top. However, my only thing with the tournament scene is that it does take so long to finally have a winner, and so much can happen in a career, or so much can happen in between when you're waiting for all the different rounds to occur, and then you have injuries on top and things like that. I love a tournament. There's probably no way they can do it. If they might, you think they could ever change the model of like a championship tournament? Maybe make the fights 8 rounds instead of 10, and then when the championship fight comes, then you go 12 or 15, whatever. I don't know. I'm just trying to say, how can you consolidate it where we'd have a definitive winner or a championship fight within a year's time, or 6 months or something like that? I don't know if you could do that, but sometimes that's the only trouble with professional tournaments in the sport of boxing, is it does take a long time to eventually weed out to get to the final championship fight.
Well, the Super 6 series that Showtime put on clearly took a little too long, but I think most of the tournaments that are going on now are time, they are conscious of the time. This particular one, I don't think they're making these guys wait any longer, than they would have between fights. Remember, fighters nowadays, if they fight 3 times in a year, everybody wants to give them a Fighters of the Year award because they were so busy, So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, but unfortunately, fighters just aren't active enough anymore.
But Bill, this is the whole thing. What if they were to start or rebrand the tournament style fight or fighter to see who was going to actually throw their hat in the ring? Because there'll be a lot more to risk. Let's say they have a fight, and this is going to be very hard to do, but they've got a fight every 2 weeks or on a Friday night to get down to the elimination process. Maybe you have 4 rounds in a tournament, and every 2 weeks the tournament's wrapped up in 2 months, with maybe the championship bout, like a Super Bowl, having a longer delay in between. And that goes for 12 rounds. In other words, maybe they can whittle down. It's going to be, you want to throw your hat into the ring? Okay, you're going to fight a 6-round all-or-nothing fight, or an 8-round all-or-nothing fight, and the winner goes on to the next round. You're going to fight in 2 more weeks. I mean, just think about it. It's different than what we're used to. But those fighters that want to toss their hats into the ring for that kind of venue will be rising to the occasion and will have to endure and go by the rules of that tournament. It's just a food for thought. They got to change something because, like I said, there's very few fans that can tolerate or follow for a year and a half of a tournament or less.
They're just not taking that long anymore. Like if you look at the World Boxing Super Series, I mean, the World Boxing Super Series tournament with the cruiserweight and super middleweight, we're up to the finals now. An injury has prolonged the final, the championship for both weight classes. But aside from that, it moved pretty quickly. I think
how long is quickly? How long did it take from the start, from the first round?
From the first round, I think by the time it finishes with these finals, even though they got pushed back, probably 1 year. You know, but the thing is that, you know, if you're getting fighters to get into the tournament, now that's not an easy task today with how fighters look at careers and how, you know, safety first and risk versus reward. So if you get them all to come in, that's the first trick. The second trick is the money, right? I mean, there has to be some kind of lucrative, you know, financial gain for these guys to risk that. And once you start talking about less rounds, you know, an 8-rounder or a 6-rounder in the beginning, which I get your train of thought, and it's, if you were talking about like a tournament with younger fighters, I think that would fit perfect. Where you start them off, you know, a bigger pool of fighters, start them out at 4 rounds, get them in 6, 8, and then championships at 10. These guys are starting at 10. You know, money is what dictates the rounds. In other words, you know, fighters wouldn't be opposed to fighting 6-rounders. It's just that the pay scale drops. You know, that's why they're always trying to get. So I don't know. There's no right.
Here's my thought. And again, remember the original name. It's prize fighting. So if we're looking at a tournament situation, let's graduate it from a 6-round to the next round being an 8-round, to the semifinals being a 10-round, to the championship being a 12-round or a 15-round. Go all out. And this way, and what does it prove? Well, guess what? Let it be for the unknown fighter that wants to throw their hat into the ring to weed out and this and that. And then that champion who wins that tournament will be in line to fight for a title fight, maybe, something like that, for the world championship. It's on a fast track or something like that. Because, like I said, for the tournament to take for a year's period of time, so much could happen in a sport with the main division that's always highlighted by the champion who did not go into the tournament. So hypothetically, the tournaments are always secondary to a world title fight and a world championship. So maybe there could be the weeding ground, the proving ground, and elimination ground to get somebody in position within 6 months to go for a title fight that's basically unknown. I'm just throwing my comments out there.
Here's the thing. You're not wrong with your train of thought, but the problem is getting, first of all, a tournament with the way you suggest. The only way that it would work is with a pool of young fighters. All right, because they're the only ones that are gonna do it. Now you got to find a pool of young fighters that are willing to take the risk. All right. Now if you go the other route and take and then by the way, the pool of young fighters generally will be unknown fighters, which generally will not draw a lot of interest financially. Therefore, the purses will be limited. Right. So now if you take that next step and say, well, let's go for some fighters that are a little more well known, and you suggest like what you are, they're not going to take the risk. It has to be some kind of happy medium. Don't get me wrong, Sal. I agree with your concept because it makes more exciting and the best will truly rise to the top. These tournaments that they're having, like this one here, really doesn't prove anything when you have all these guys, you know, somewhat around the same level, and before you know it, you're down to like right now. You know, you have all those guys, and after 1 week, we're down to 2 fights, and then the final. You know, so you got 3 fights left. So I hear you. Well, listen, the tournament. Yeah. If the fighters, not to get too much, I have some heavyweight news, but if we were able to get all of the best fighters to fight in a tournament, That would be exciting. Unfortunately, we don't have enough American fighters that would be willing to take that risk. We just don't. We don't.
No, we don't.
But, hey, a new segment that we started, a heavyweight roundup, which I will give you every week, all of the heavyweight fights that took place. This way we can get familiar with some of these, out of the nowhere names that get thrown in with, or just like what Sal and I are talking about right now. Now, the one problem with doing this is there's a lot of heavyweight fights that are scheduled, or at least on the schedule, and then by the time Monday comes around, they either had a last-minute sub, the fight was scratched, it never took place, whatever. And that's kind of what happened this weekend. We have a couple of fights that we will talk about. All of them took place on Saturday. Out of Spain, we had Lel Tuxu Lahuta improved to 1 win and 1 draw when he got a second-round stoppage over David Giedscheid, who drops to 20, 21, and 1. In Maine, Justin Rolfe, making his pro debut, stopped Michael Hansen in the very first round. Hansen, too, was making his pro debut, so Rolfe is now 1-0, and Michael Hansen is 0-1. Also, from Germany, Blelrum Hajari is improved to 4-0 with a draw when he stopped Nedjedko Savorik in the very first round. Savorik drops to 2-25. Evan Brockmuller improved to 11-1 with his first-round stoppage over Mario Laps, who drops to 0-2. Sebastian Bulak improves to 1-1 when he had a first-round stoppage over Sven Spathman, who drops his first fight of his career. He's now 0-1. Out of the Castle Banquet and Conference Center in New Hampshire, Jason Bergman improved to 27 wins, 15 losses, and 2 draws when he stopped Ruben Williams in the very first round. Put an asterisk next to that fight. Ruben Williams went for the payday. They both are under the same management. I know the manager of these guys. It was getting Bergman another shot at another fight. Ruben Williams drops to 29, 32-1. Can't stand fights like this. Nothing against Ruben, but this guy was a really good fighter at one time in a way lower weight class. Now he just goes in and spars for a few bucks. Brendan Barrett improved to 7-0 with a couple of draws when he won a unanimous 6-round decision over Tracy Johnson, who drops to 4-7. And over in the Shaw Conference Center, I got to call a couple of fights out of there. In Canada, Adam Braidwood improved to 13-1 when he stopped Hugo Leon in the fourth round of a scheduled 6. Leon drops to 5-2. And Erkan Tepper improved to 19-2 when he stopped Davet Gorzeladzdy in the second of a scheduled 6 round. He drops to 16-11. So there's some heavyweight fights that took place over the weekend, Sal. And God, just pronouncing the names are a big-time task, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the international boxing scene for you. It's no longer Joe Smith.
Speaking of heavyweights, Dillian White is all kinds of mad. We got a super chat, and I want to remind everyone we do super chat Thursdays, but we would love to get super chats 100,000 times a day. But my man Johnston has a super chat. He says, "Hey Sal, do you still believe AJ versus Wilder will happen in their next fights?" What do you think, Sal? It was with you.
Without having my ears too close to the ground right now, last week I was excited when I heard Thursday they were going to have a meeting. And, I know that Deontay threw out some offers out there, and I think they're finagling their way through it. And, I don't want to say no news is good news, but as long as no news means that it's not no fight. I still feel in my heart of hearts they're going to try and make this fight happen for each of these fighters to be their next fight. I just don't see how else the heavyweight division can stay on course or shape up without this fight taking place next. That's so in my opinion. Yes, I do feel that this fight is going to take place. It's only May, and this fight can surely be signed, sealed, and delivered to us by August, November, or surely in that time frame, September, November. So I'm hoping, and I do want this fight to take place this year.
Well, we all want the fight to take place this year, and I'm hoping too, but I doubt it very much. I don't think that Wilder made a legitimate offer. It was so suspicious, everything about it, and it's a shame. You know, I don't understand why it was like that. I think I'm more perplexed by that, you know, where somebody insists upon, you know, fighter to fighter, except in a fight before they would issue a contract. It just seems it's the most shady sequence of events I've ever seen for such a big fight. We're not talking about, you know, me and Sal fighting. We're talking about a potentially $100 million fight, you know. So it just seems very strange to me. And I listen, rumor has it that your boy is already signed, sealed, and delivered to fight Dominic Brazil, and Povetkin against AJ. They have to start that goes to purse bid, I think, tomorrow. I think either tomorrow or by Friday or something. The time is up. I think it's the 5th. So you know, if they don't even start negotiations with that, they're going to end up fighting in Russia. But
well, you know, and Bill, it's so upsetting because, you know, all eyes are on this fight, and this should be the fight that is made. And as we spoke about, this is too big of a potential fight to possibly have something occur with another opponent lined up before this fight takes place. I mean, you know, Deontay Wilder could break another hand. Someone could lose a fight. And then you're talking about, well, we're saying goodbye to $25 million each or $50 million each. And, you know, a lot of times what happens with offers, as we see in a fight game, as we see in all levels of business, it's one party throws the world as far as what their wishes, what they want, and the other party counters with their expectations and what they feel they're worth and what they want, and then somehow they whittle it down. And you know, I have an old attorney from Jersey. He used to say, Sal, the best deals that are made are when both parties feel like they quite not didn't win, but also they feel like they haven't quite lost. And, you know, I'm sure they're trying to get to a happy medium that will make both fighters feel like, okay, you know what, it's a compromise. Maybe I didn't get the golden ring here, but I'm going to show it in my when I go out there. So that's what I'm hoping for, that they throw it out there, and now they're going to whittle it down to a happy medium and a compromise where it's realistic for both fighters to say, you know what, I can live with that, and I'm going to go on from this fight, and it'll be even better next time. That's it.
Speaking of the heavyweight division, Dillian White is very unhappy with the WBC. Now, he's currently ranked number 1 in the world by the WBC. And, you know, many people have already, you know, it's leaked out that the fight between Deontay Wilder and Dominic Brazil has already been approved and signed. And this is more indications of it, because the WBC has ordered Dillian White, who's been the number 1 ranked contender, to fight the number 4 ranked contender, Luis Ortiz, which is also kind of a mystery of how Ortiz got to be in the number 4 spot for the WBC. If you recall, he was stripped, and, you know, the first time they were going to fight Deontay Wilder, and then they let him fight. This is all without a fight. And then he loses, and now he's number 4, and they're forcing him to fight Dillian White. I don't know, but Dillian White said, I fought for every single belt the WBC said I had to fight for. I'm one of the only guys in the WBC who's followed the procedure. I fought many eliminators and many WBC-ranked fighters. I've been loyal to the WBC for 2 years. I've had the sanctioning fights. I've done everything they've asked me to do. My information was I was meant to be next in line. If anything, the WBC should be ordering me and Brazil to fight in a final eliminator to fight Wilder. I've had loads, which, you can't really argue with that. And he says, I've had loads of WBC fights, and they've always been against top contenders. Derek Chisora, Robert Helenas, Lucas Brown. These haven't been mugs. They have been top contenders who are highly ranked in the WBC as well. We're going to try and see what we can do and see whether or not we can reach some kind of an agreement with the WBC. I'm very, very disappointed and annoyed. I feel betrayed by the WBC. Who knows? Maybe the WBC is trying to set things up because they, too, know that, the Wilder AJ fight will happen sooner than later. I don't know. But hopefully we'll hear something this week. Otherwise, we're going to be hearing about the purse bid going for the Povetkin AJ fight. The Triple G Vanes Martirosyan fight is taking place this weekend. We will be giving you our breakdowns and predictions later in the week. But one of the little subplots to this fight, and as you all know, Triple G had a hard time finding an opponent, refused to walk away from the May 5th fight date, and he finally found an opponent. But the IBF was threatening not to sanction this fight, and even is going as far as stripping Triple G of his IBF world middleweight title, because their mandatory challenger for the IBF portion of the belt was Sergey Deverenchenko. And the IBF reported late last week that they would indeed sanction Triple G against Martirosyan, but the stipulation is that the next fight that he has to have, which would be Sergio Semenchenko. Now, their ruling by approving this fight suggests that even if Triple G decides to fight Canelo Alvarez in September, which many people think is going to be the move when Canelo Alvarez's suspension is lifted by mid-August, that next fight would be September on the Mexican holiday, the rematch between Triple G and Canelo. But according to the IBF, that's not going to happen, because the IBF, in order to sanction the Martirosyan fight with Triple G has had to agree that his very next fight will be defending his IBF belt against Sergey Deverenchenko. So we'll have to see what unfolds with this mess, Sal, because Deverenchenko, I know he got some step-aside money. Maybe he gets a little more if Canelo Triple G rematch happens. But to be honest with you, I think Sergey Deverenchenko, is an odd man left out. Yeah, he's a mandatory for the IBF, but he's not a money fight for Triple G. And if Triple G decides not to fight Canelo in September, he's got Billy Joe Saunders with a money thing. Either way, it seems like this all the belts are going to start to dissipate and go elsewhere.
Well, and that's what happens when you have too many belts. I mean, what do we have? The Series 5 belts, and it's so hard to have a unification of a championship division. And that's why we've got to see with the heavyweights as well, to see if we have this opportunity. And then we could see one guy say, hey, I'm the reigning undisputed champion of the world in that weight class. It's so rare. It's so predicated on the timing, on the concessions that are being made, on the demands of the sanctioning bodies that have that belt. So it's a rarity to see that we have opportunities to unify all these championship belts into one. And I think the two weight classes that can try to do it, at least for a temporary period, would be the middleweight division and the heavyweight division. And it's optimum to provide that for the fans this year. Otherwise, after that, forget about it. All falls apart.
So we'll see what happens with the middleweight picture. Right now, Triple G holds all the titles except for the WBO. And, that is the problem with sanctioning bodies. And we thought that they were fixing that mess by incorporating the super champions or the diamond champions. But they You know,
that's insult to injury,
well,
man.
they found a way to screw that up. You know, they have mandatories. They have regular titles. They have mandatory defenses for both sides. They have interim belt. I mean, it's a scam.
Forget about it.
It's a total scam. So that's what's taking place there. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan join us. We'll get his thoughts on the fights. Then I have some emails to read. We got several emails I want to try and get out of the way. We got a trivia question. We got tomorrow, don't forget, we got our blast from the past is Vinny Pazienza. And, of course,
Vinny, my buddy.
my man Larry Hazard will be joining us as well. So, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan. Don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free. Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000. Start program. They will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604. Listen.
Endless pools are
has years of experience connecting people with
chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young. And he's got martinis. So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And speaking of being with us, joining us right now is my man Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Hey, good morning. How's everybody today?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
You know, these Tuesday shows, I'm so used to the Mondays, it just kind of throw me off a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, when you get to be as old as you are, Dax, you don't want to rock your schedule every day. Not like young guys like Sal and myself. You know, young guys like Sal and myself. You know, it doesn't matter. We roll with the punches.
No, we roll with the punches. We just rise to the occasion. Hey, but you know what? It's so funny when we do have a Tuesday show like this, starting off the week. Wow, tomorrow's already Blast from the Past Day. It's a great Wednesday ahead, so it's interesting.
You don't roll with the punches. You roll with whatever the Metamucil does when it kicks into the system.
No, he's on Geritol. The Metamucil is good for him.
Easy, guys. Forget about it. I'm ready to hate.
So
I'm
Dax,
ready to go back in the ring, pal.
Dax,
give me 6 more months.
The fight between Daniel Jacobs and Sulecki. We all learned how to pronounce his last name. It's got the old famous Polish silent N and S, but Sulecki put a decent show on for himself. What was your thoughts on the Daniel Jacobs-Sulecki fight?
It wasn't a dominant performance that fans were expecting out of Daniel Jacobs. The stress on Sulecki being a 154-pound fighter was absurd, and I said that to you on Friday. He's a career middleweight and even has a handful of fights at super middleweight. He's been draining himself to make that 154 pounds, to get some bigger fights. We've seen a version of Sulecki on Saturday that, has made him so successful up to this point. He's a fast, valiant puncher who uses a variety of combinations to mix up his attack. His chin is underrated, and as is his defense. The speed gave Jacobs trouble early. Jacobs, to his credit, though, despite I see a lot of criticism towards him, and I'm a little bit critical at the amount of punches that he took, but, we've seen a version of Daniel Jacobs, a very matured version, more or less, maybe you'd like to say, where, he went in there and he didn't rush anything. No mistakes in there did he make. He made sure that, his opponent was exactly, in the position where he wanted him to be all night, more or less, So this is definitely a version of Daniel Jacobs that is at a whole new level. He's an exciting fighter still, but, one that doesn't take unneeded risk. Sulecki didn't have the power to hurt him. Maybe that's why Jacobs allowed Sulecki, to land some of those punches. I don't know. We see that with Gennady Golovkin a lot. It's not really the best of tactics, but, we did see him work on some new defensive postures, whether or not, he was rolling with, he was using that cross arm. What was really odd in that fight, I don't know if anybody else noticed, I had mentioned this on Saturday night on social media. Did you see him around 7 and 8? Daniel Jacobs sort of faded for no reason. He got really tired in those rounds. His legs seemed a little bit rubbery, and it didn't seem like he took any big punches. Maybe it was the volume of punches. I don't know, but, he did turn it back up. He dropped Sulecki late. Daniel Jacobs is a guy, who can go the full 12 rounds at a high level. Sulecki, what I really liked about him is even after he goes down, he gets up and comes right back at Daniel Jacobs, hoping to even out the round. It was a solid fight. It was entertaining. Nothing could really be said in terms of Jacobs where, you've seen any flaws. You've seen him slipping. The only thing that you could really get on him about is those punches that he took maybe a little unnecessarily. As far as Sulecki is, I think the guy really raised his profile, and I think most fans will want to see him fight again, no?
It's a good point that you made about Danny Jacobs, and I want to say this. I think you're right. I think Daniel Jacobs has gotten to a point. Now, I don't know if something clicked or if he and his trainer got to an. And speaking of which, I have given his trainer all kinds of flack. I just wasn't a big fan. But let me tell you what I have to admit this morning is that I find, and one of my hang-ups with him was that he always seemed like the Zen master in the corner, and he never seemed to give any constructive instruction to his fighters. He was too busy with the mental aspect. I think he has finally learned that he needs to balance the mental aspect with constructive instruction, and I think he was doing that with Daniel Jacobs on Saturday night, Dax. I think that he was getting the right instruction, and Daniel Jacobs was on the same page, so they were both on the same page. I think that he was taking a break in those rounds, and I also think that he's trying to be too perfect with the execution of the game plan. Do either one of you guys notice that, or do you think I'm thinking too deep?
I think if I go ahead, Dax, you go.
No,
buddy.
go, Sal, go. I was waiting for you.
Okay, well, I think what you say, Bill, is a very good point. Maybe he's matured in his mind where he thinks this is what he's got to now try to do, to preserve some things and to see and take a step back and turn it on and close big. I don't know. I think that it just happened to be, and I always say a fighter's only as good as his last fight. Well, this is just what we just saw him do. I mean, the guy is a world-class fighter. He's a tremendous he's got a tremendous presence in the ring, and because maybe he did something a little differently this time out against an opponent that he was in the ring with. I don't think you could automatically assume things just yet, and maybe overthinking it might be something. We just got to wait to see what his next fight showcases, or what's revealed in his next fight. So I give him a pass on that, but again, maybe losing weight too. I mean, this is a guy that we know how big he's gotten too. So who knows what he was tearing himself down to make that 154.
What do you think, Doc?
Two things. One, as far as the case of Andre Rozier, whose birthday happens to be today, he had the chin checkers, and we know what became of those guys. And they all had potential at one point in time, but they just didn't seem to have that mental capacity. So, I think Andre Rozier had gotten a lot of flack because of where those guys fell short. And who knows? We're not in those camps. We're not in the gym, so we don't know where, Andre Rozier was saying to himself, what kind of tag, what approach do I have to take to get these guys' heads, where they should be, so they can carry out physically what they're capable of. But as far as Daniel Jacobs, even in the last fight against Luis Arias, where Luis Arias was a big puncher and he talked a lot, he was going to come out there, he was going to knock Danny Jacobs out, and Danny Jacobs remained composed in that fight, and he gave Arias a boxing lesson. He didn't take any unnecessary chances where he showed something, that I can outbox you and I can knock you out. And as this middleweight division continues growing deeper, you're going to have to be a smart thinking fighter, and I think the Triple G fight is one that really told him, or more or less said to him, if I just did one or two things differently in that fight, I definitely probably would have. In my opinion, I agree. I mean, he would have actually gotten a nod for that. So, and the fact that he's able to sit there and do it against quality opponents, not that Sulecki or Arias are, the elite, but, the very good opponents, and they're the guys that, you can go in there and you can work on those type of things and be able to do that, and improve this way when you get back in there against the Triple Gs and stuff, you're able to carry those out. You're going to bring yourself, back to that former glory of being a champion. Now, I'm not really sure. I know that he is the WBA mandatory. I'm not clear. Is he the mandatory for Triple G's super title, or is he the mandatory for Murata Ryota's regular world title, the one that Daniel Jacobs held previously? I really like the Murata fight. Murata, not only is he a high volume puncher like Sulecki, but he's also he also has some pop. I think that would be a very exciting fight. In my opinion, that would be even more exciting than Triple G versus Canelo if we seen a Daniel Jacobs versus Ryota Murata.
Yeah, who knows with the WBA? That's an interesting question, Dax. But and one last thing I want to add before we move on to the next fight is you're 100% correct. Sulecki put on a great performance. His lack of punching power was the only difference in that fight. Because if he had a little more pop, a little more steam behind those punches, maybe Daniel Jacobs' fight's a little different. But I, for one, and Sal said agreed with me earlier, and you said the same thing. We all want to see more of this guy, so hopefully we get to see it soon. In the co-main event, the heavyweight fight, the last guy that was watching, they finally woke him up and ushered him out of the arena. Jarrell Miller, all 304 pounds of him, beat the snot out of Johann Duhaupas. I was impressed with Miller. Yeah, he was 300 pounds. He fights like a lighter guy. Yeah, he ran out of gas midway through, but he was still more, output oriented than Duhaupas. Duhaupas is a slow, methodical, doesn't have much pop, but man, can he take a beating. What did we learn, at least in your opinion, Dax? What did you learn from Jarrell Miller's victory over Duhaupas? Because personally, I didn't learn anything.
One thing I did learn is that Roy Jones is adamant that Jarrell Miller is a very well-built 304-pound fighter, which he continued to say all night. But I really got nothing out of this, As you stated, we all know that Johann Duhaupas is tough, and what we did get to see is Jarrell Miller go 12 rounds for the first time. He didn't go a fast 12 rounds. Could he still be as effective if he lost some weight? In my opinion, I don't know. I really think that weight allows him to take these heavyweight blows. He's not fast. He did show some nice defense. I like the way he rolls with his punches. But, Jarrell Miller, Also, too, I think, some of this weight hurts him where he doesn't really get the leverage behind his punches. He's getting that body weight behind the punches, which is a whole lot different than actually getting the power behind the punches that, we would see at Deontay Wilder or an Anthony Joshua. So, does he rank with the top names? It's interesting. I don't know. Maybe if he lost a little bit more weight and he became more mobile, I think we'd see a whole different version of Jarrell Miller, even in this, even at his size, 6'4", and even if he weighed 275 pounds, he really is sort of a small heavyweight for this era,
right,
which is preposterous. Every time I think about that, I'm like, really, wow. But Miller, what's next for him? I don't know. The fight I would actually like to see, to be honest, while Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are going through their whole negotiation terms, I think an exciting fight would actually be Jarrell Miller and Dillian White. Jarrell Miller, one day he's with Matchroom Boxing, the next day I'm my own boss. I'm not with Matchroom Boxing. He's mad at Eddie Hearn because he hasn't gotten his title shot yet. I don't know, but whatever's going on there is what's going on there. Who knows what's being said behind the scenes. We can only speculate, but I think Dillian White and Jarrell Miller would be an all-action fight. Johan Duhaupas, I like the guy, but he's 37 years old. As you stated, he takes a lot of abuse. He has in the last couple of years in his last few fights. He's exciting, but I think maybe the European level, meaning European championship bouts, and some of the guys at that one step below the Anthony Joshuas and Deontay Wilders and Dillian Whites, would be a nice place for him to tailor off his career. And right now, we just got to see what happens with Jarrell Miller. It's fight by fight. Who knows? Next year he may be a world champion. Next year, he may be yesterday's news.
First of all, Duhaupas, nobody ever heard of him until he fought Deontay Wilder, and he's made a decent living since in terms of money. As far as Jarrell Miller, there's no way this guy's ready for a title shot. It makes me sick that a fighter could fight the level of opposition that he has in 22 professional fights and be crying that he didn't get his world title shot. It boggles my mind. I have one question for you, Dax, pertaining to Jarrell Miller that you made a point. What?
I was going to say, what was really caught me, that was interesting in that fight was, I really don't pay a lot of attention to the show stats because whether or not show stats, HBO, ESPN, they don't seem very accurate all the time. But, they said there was that one round, I think it was in the 8th, where Miller landed 11 jabs. And they said that was double the heavyweight average. Is that true? 11 jabs in a round is double the heavyweight average. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, Lennox Lewis, Larry Holmes, and Evander Holyfield, Vladimir Klitschko, Vitaly Klitschko, these guys must be really, saying to themselves, 11 jabs is double the average?
Joseph Parker.
There's no great heavyweights.
Joseph Parker landed more than that in his fight against AJ in his last fight. But listen, my question to you was, and that's an interesting one, I don't know the answer about that, but my question to you, backing up something that you said, or I'm adding something you said. You said that you felt that if Jarrell Miller lost some weight, he does have some decent hand speed, but do you think that if he lost some weight, it would be advantageous to him when he does get in there with a real heavyweight like Deontay or AJ to be able to be a little more mobile than he is? Because if he, although he can move his hands, and you're right, he did display some defensive prowess with the rolling of his head and everything else, but without fleet of foot, isn't he kind of standing right there for two big-time punchers in Deontay and AJ?
Well, that's, again, that's why I said I don't know if losing the weight would be beneficial to him because, he has that low center of gravity. So to speak, it's not like one part of his, it's not like, he's top heavy where all his weight is on top, he has skinny legs, he's just really a big guy all the way through. But, if he's a little bit more mobile, he's actually able to get, some pop behind those punches rather than just arm punches. And then, again, he's able to move around. Dillian White, there's a guy who, again, I'll mention him and his last fight against Lucas Brown. Not that Lucas Brown is, really was an elite heavyweight, but, Dillian White, the way he moved around in that fight, he has good power, respectable power, not one punch, devastating power like a Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua. But, Dillian White does have knockout power, and the fact that, he was able to move around, get in there, land his shots, and get back out and avoid those counters, that really upped his game. And I wonder, how Jarrell Miller would be, who's also 6'4", the same size as Dillian White. So I wonder, if Jarrell Miller would be able to capitalize on that. That's something that, it's just interesting. Speculation, you just wonder.
Good point.
What's the worst that could happen? You lose the weight, it doesn't work out for you, you put it back on. But, it's, fighting at this slow pace like that, it's not going to get the job done. Against a Deontay Wilder, you're not going to touch him with those long arms and, the movement circling around. You're not going to touch him. It just makes no sense to me. But you know what? I'm not on the team. I don't know how he feels at that weight. Like I said, see what happens.
It's a lot easier to take it off. I mean, it's a lot easier to put it on than take it off. But in a fight that was really exciting, at least in my opinion, Isaac Dogboe upset Jessie Magdaleno. I think you predicted that on Friday, but Dogboe put on a great fight, a great display. Magdaleno apparently took him lightly, or what? I don't know. Give us your assessment of the fight.
Like I said, I told you on Friday, we're going to have a new world champion, and Jessie Magdaleno was going to be on his back before that round ended. The kid is all pressure, and, he has a variety of punches, and he never slows down. And if you're not expecting somebody like that, for example, Sulecki, we were just talking about him with that pressure and that constant coming forward. You're not expecting that, or you've never dealt with that. Danny Jacobs, has fought the higher caliber guys than Jessie Magdaleno, whose best opponent was, a little bit of a faded Nonito Donaire. A guy who's coming at you like that and has a solid chin, you kind of get shell-shocked a little bit. Sal and I, before the segment came on, were speaking about the knockdown. If you go back and you watch it again, Isaac Dogboe, he wasn't really knocked, he was knocked down, but, they were kind of close together. His feet weren't really, his feet were more or less squared up. He was at an odd angle. He wasn't really hurt, maybe a little bit stunned, but he wasn't really hurt. He got up and came right back at him. Jessie Magdaleno, he's never been put into that situation. You mentioned earlier with Sal, what was going through his head when he kept egging him on. More or less that was a combination, in my opinion, between hopefully this guy slows down. Hopefully, that one punch that he just rang my bell with just happened to catch me by surprise, or the other thing is, I don't know what else to do. Hopefully, I can outlast this kid. But that body work of Dogboe, when he comes and just keeps attacking the body nonstop, and he really digs the body, and he's so short. He's only 5'3", and as you stated earlier, the fact that his father, who is not a boxing coach, who, a trainer, however you want to put it, kind of self-taught, and him and Isaac, used to work in the backyard, and they developed the style, and, very effective, it has worked, unlike, we see a lot of these coaches who read a book or they see something on YouTube and say, oh, I'm a trainer. This guy only did it with his son, and it's been effective. So this kid is he's going to improve. He's only 23 years old. He's going to get some more of the fundamentals down, and he's going to be trouble for anybody in that division. I don't care who it is. Isaac Dogboe, he, in my opinion, he made himself a star on Saturday night. And what I really like is the fact that even though he didn't have a promoter of no entering that, Top Rank, from my understanding, has decided to take him on full time and promote his future bout. So what's that say?
I would say, and the other thing I was thinking during that fight, I'm going, man, Jessie is making all the money for this fight. They probably are paying this kid Dogboe nothing. And now all of a sudden, after one fight, one win, in the way it was, this kid, I bet you can't wait to get in the ring again, because that's when he's going to make his first real payday, is his next fight. So anyway,
two things again in this fight and the Jacobs fight. Years ago, you used to have people scout your opponents. Let me ask you, Bill, or you, Sal, do you think in either one of these fights where maybe that, these guys weren't scouted correctly? Dogboe wasn't scouted correctly by the team of Magdaleno, and, Sulecki wasn't scouted, correctly by the team of Daniel Jacobs, where they weren't preparing for this guy. You have to, and sometimes in fights you have to prepare for the style of that one particular fighter, and it doesn't seem that neither Daniel Jacobs nor, especially Jessie Magdaleno was prepared for the style of either one of their opponents. Luckily for Danny Jacobs, he's at that level where he can adapt to anything. Jessie Magdaleno wasn't, so, do you think that is possibly the case? Is there an excuse for such a thing?
No, I think, there's so much in the media that becomes available instantly as far as a fight. So for a fighter not to take hint and say, hey, let me look at this guy. Let me sit down with my trainer, and let's see what this guy has, what we can offset, what we can counter, what we could do, what we can get away with, what we can stretch him at. No, I think they would have had to have seen some highlights. And the only thing with Magdaleno on his part is, he did have over a year off. So maybe the inactivity it came to fruition, and it showed in his response, in his speed, and his counter, and his whole mechanics were maybe just off. I mean, a year off, it does that idle time does give you some type of hindrance when you go back in the ring for a full-blown title fight.
Listen, we're running out of time, guys, and I got to get one more thing. Just real quick, your question. I think in this case, they both kind of underestimated their opponents, and especially in Jessie's case, they had no plan B or C or D or E or whatever set up. They underestimated, and in today's world, there's no reason to not scout your opponent, especially when all the fights are available at your fingertips. Dax, one last question. Bryant Jennings fought Joey Dwejko on the undercard of the Dogboe Magdaleno fight. And you know me, I've always been a big fan of Jennings. He looked different. He looked slow. He looked like he couldn't pull off his punches. And I'm not discrediting Joey Dwejko because he's unusually quick for a guy with his physique. But how did you see the fight with Jennings and Dwejko?
As you stated before, and you stated just now, I didn't see anything that looked like the old Bryant Jennings. In fact, I thought early on that Joey Dwejko was actually going to get a stoppage because Bryant Jennings was not reacting well to that bodywork of Joey Dwejko, and I wasn't taking the punches, so I don't know how hard they were, but Bryant Jennings just did not seem to like that continuous pressure. Dwejko slowed down, and that was a good thing for Jennings in the mid-rounds. Why Bryant Jennings? They had to implore with him to work your jab on the outside. I had him winning by 2 points. I don't think that Joey Dwejko was given enough credit for the body work. Dwejko, as you stated, he's an underestimated guy. He's not that mobile, but he is a talented guy. He's a very small heavyweight. I don't see Bryant Jennings getting back to the place he was in the Klitschko fight. Just the fact that he lasted distance with Vladimir Klitschko and gave him so much problem, was a big feather in his cap, and in my opinion, at that point in time, really raised his stock. But the knockout loss to Luis Ortiz, where he was doing well early on, and then where he got caught with those big shots, I don't know if it hurt him mentally or physically or a little bit of both. But he's definitely not the same fighter inside there. So. What can you say? One last thing on those the fights with on that card. Did you notice during that card that there were several times? I think during the Jennings and Dwejko fight, it might have been Joey Dwejko who pointed out that that logo in the center of the ring was very slippery, and I think Jessie Magdaleno almost slipped on it as well. That played that plays a big factor in these fights. One of these promoters and these matchmakers going to say, we need to do something a little bit different here. Instead of having these fighters worry and concentrate more, not slipping on the logo, than what's going on in front of them. You turn your head away for a second. That gives your opponent an opportunity, to land, a clean punch because you're more worried about the logo on the floor.
Well, you make a great point, but it's not going to stop because those logos on the floor represent money that sponsors had given to the promoters. So, until they stop paying, and their logical correction for that would say, okay, well, don't make them as slick. Let's put those decals or however you want to call them. Yeah, put them on there with some kind of, anti-slip surface, but then the argument's going to be, well, they don't show up as visible on the camera shot. So once again, money gets in the way of the safety of the fighters, Dax and Sal, and that's why you make a good point. Hey, one last thing, and I gotta go. I already got to take a break, but one last thing: Dwejko in this fight, and the way that the scoring system is, when he was landing his jabs, and he was landing his jabs in twos and threes, boom, 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 quick ones. They were pretty hard. They were pretty hard jabs. He was doing the same thing with his hook to the body. And I don't know. I think I agree with you, Dax. I don't know if he was getting credit for those as being a little more than a jab. You know how the stupid punch stats count the jab as a jab. If you jab Sal and knock him out, the stat would show a jab, not a power punch, even though it was enough to knock him out. So who knows? But I agree. Dwejko needs to lose some weight and fight in a lower weight class because he does have the talent. He definitely does. But listen, guys, Dax, I appreciate it. And we'll see you later in the week to give us your predictions on the big fights this weekend, including Triple J.
Absolutely. Before I go, we have to give our condolences to the Reed family. Jesse Reed Jr. passed away in Philadelphia this weekend when they were arriving for the ESPN show. He had passed out and he fell at the airport. From what I understand, he had a stroke. Jesse Reed Jr. and his father had a fighter on that card. Jesse was only 44 years old. So our condolences to the family. For them and their that situation. May your grief pass quickly.
Thanks for bringing that up for us, Dax. It flew under my radar. But, Dax, have a good one. We'll chat with you next week.
All right, everybody. Enjoy your day.
Later.
Take care, Dax.
That's Dax Khan straightening us out. With that, I flew under my radar with Jess. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When I come back, I got some emails to read. Don't go anywhere.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And we got some emails to read, so we're going to get to those right now. First one is from our man Jesse. He says, hey, Billy C. and Sal, this was a disappointing fight for Jessie Magdaleno. Horrible performance. He was doing good at first, but when he got caught, he changed, and he got on his bicycle, letting Dogboe hit him at will, not punching, missing his counters badly when he did punch, unwilling to exchange when he had the chance to, and not listening to his corner. He needs to look at this performance. Dogboe versus Luis Neri, Daniel Roman, Ray Vargas, Iwasa, Oguna, or even Emmanuel Navarrete. And Jesse should fight any top 10 to 20 fighter to get back on track. He's got some other points here, but I guess you could agree with that. It was a bad performance, but I just think that he wasn't prepared for this guy, Sal. I think that's what it boils down to. All of his actions showed that he wasn't prepared. And it's like I always say, we, until the fight happens. And all of a sudden, where's the trainer? How come the trainer's not being held accountable? I think they lost as a team in this fight, brother.
Well, I think you're right, but I also, like I said, a year off. I mean, you can't have the continuity, the freshness, the ability to really, you take a year off from any craft, any trade. You come back in the ring for a championship title bout, your first fight back, you're going to have to work out some things. And I don't care if it's your range or motion. Sure, you prepare and you spar and you try to work them out there. But it's a different thing when come championship fight night. And, maybe he hasn't been in that position before where he's had a year off like that. But like I said, some fighters could do it easier than others. So I'm going to say he just has to have some more continuity and more regular boxing through the course of a year. That's all. So we'll see what happens his next time out. And he should get back within the next 3 months.
It was like a couple of days over a year, but I hear what you're saying. Fighters should be fighting more often than they do.
We used to fight every month, every other month.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone. We used to do a lot of things. But so amazing is too, even in the amateur days, we would fight every Friday night. The amateurs fight way more frequently.
They do. But the pros, I remember I would fight sometimes 2 fights, 3 fights coming up inside a month, or 2 fights within 2 weeks. It was just, they would book them. We'd go to Tennessee, then we come over here.
But wait a minute. Weren't you the guy that waited 25 years plus before you fought? Come on, man.
That's true, too. I had 5 years.
The next point.
I forgot about that. I laid off that.
Yeah, the next point that Jesse has is he says, Danny Jacobs, it was a good win for a game Sulecki. Tough fight because Sulecki had a chin and throwing some hard, bad-intention punches. Jacobs needs guys that he mentioned, like Triple G, Canelo, Andre, Charlo, or Saunders. I agree with that, and Sulecki was a guy I want to see more. But Jacobs is the guy. Any of those guys are good for Daniel Jacobs. He says, Jarrell Miller was a good win, but he still needs to fight somebody. I heard Andy Ruiz Jr. wants to fight him. That's a good fight. Your thoughts on him saying that he gets backlash because he's fat, but he says he trains hard and works on boxing, and they shouldn't look at his weight. Anytime you got more rolls than the bakery down the street, people are going to give you a hard time. He's not impressive to me at all. Jarrell Miller is a fraud, in my opinion. He's a guy that has not fought anybody, has nothing to do with his weight, and to suggest that he's mad at Eddie Hearn or any promoter for not getting him a title shot already, this just goes to show you the mentality of fighters of today, and the fact that, the old saying, you get out what you put into something. Today, if you're in the right place at the right time, you're getting a title shot. Meanwhile, and this is my biggest hang-up, it's not that I have anything against those particular fighters. It's the poor fighters that are working their butts off in the gym and they're not getting the opportunity, or they're getting put in with knockout, drag-out, killer fights and come up with a loss or two, and then they lose their value. That's my problem. Those are the real fighters. We talk about Philly fighters. That's why, Philly fighters were so great, because they weren't afraid to get an L. Unfortunately, that the game has changed. But anyway, Mitch has an email for us. He says, I got some questions. He said, first and foremost, I do want to say this, that Anthony Joshua did respond to Deontay Wilder via Twitter by saying, let's roll. This was in a response to our show where I said it's a real simple thing that AJ has to do. He should accept the fight the way Deontay Wilder presented it. In other words, just reply through an email. That's not a contract. It's not a challenge, but whatever. If the simpleton team of Wilder wants to be treated like that, well, then that's what AJ should have done. He didn't do it, so who knows? We'll see what happens. Mitch says, do you think either of these things will happen or have happened? Number one, Shelley Finkel, Al Heyman, or Mark Breland came to Deontay to tell them what the game plan would be, but Deontay's dumbness jumped the gun by sending out the email. He says, my thinking is that he wasn't intelligent enough to understand that he needed to keep quiet. Team Wilder figured he was smart enough to know that their unspoken words do not say anything was understood. but Wilder actually didn't understand because they literally didn't say it to him. What a dummy if that's the case. I don't think that they told Deontay Wilder not to say anything and then Deontay Wilder did. I think this was the plan from the get-go. I think they put the burden on Deontay Wilder because everybody that's involved in the business of boxing knows that a fighter cannot call out another fighter and have that fighter accept and then have a fight that's made. That's him. It does not happen like that. Yes, a fighter can call out another fighter and eventually the fight can be made, but at some point in time, that fight has to have a contract. It has to have stipulations in the contract. When the fight's going to be, how long, how much, blah, 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 blah. And those contracts get negotiated. You do not negotiate prior to a contract being written. I'm sorry. It was a PR move. I'm sorry. I'm afraid to ask your thoughts, but go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
I know what you're saying, and yeah, many times you'll see a fight that is agreed upon and the date's agreed upon and everything else, and then they work out the mechanics in there. And like I said, I said all along, I believe in my heart of hearts that you're going to just wake up one day and boom, it's going to be there with all the details that we need to know. But I do believe these guys are serious about getting in the ring with each other. And I do believe that they're sitting down right now, knocking out and ironing out some things. Now, whether that comes to be true, we're hopefully going to hear very soon. But I'd have to think, Bill, that on this level, with this much money on the line and this much attention that this fight could draw and bring and do for the sport of boxing, that come on, we gotta. May we give credit to people to being smarter than we actually think they are, but I think this fight deserves the attention, the time, and everything else, and it's just part of the drama of making it, having to marinate for the fans, not so much for the fighters, because they know they're going to fight.
Well, we hope so. We hope.
Well, that's a perfect world. I just made an assumption right there. They already know they're going to fight. We just don't know.
The next question, he says, Anthony Joshua is rumored to be coming to Brooklyn or to fight on the Miller fight card, to watch. Could this set up a WWE style? I didn't see him. In attendance at all. Did you?
No, I didn't see him. I didn't. And you know what? I'm sure that the commentators would have made reference to that if they saw AJ in the stands. And unless he was with dark shades incognito sitting in the back row, he would have been right up front. And all eyes would have been on him, and they would have made reference to that. And he was not there. That I can tell.
I didn't see him. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But anyway, we got thanks for the email. Mitch, I got one last email here. This one's from my man Rick, and he says, "Hey Billy C, I hope everything's going good with you and Sal." He says, "I really enjoy the new heavyweight roundup segment. Just wish there were more American fighters to cover. The heavyweight division was much deeper when I was a kid, and that's what really got me into this sport because there was so many guys to root for, and they all had good fights and good rivalries with other heavyweights. Can't deny that. In today's world, a lot of big guys that would be heavyweights are fighting in. They're playing other sports like football, basketball, etc." He says, "As far as these two guys we have now, Joshua and Wilder, I really want this fight to happen. But the more these guys talk, the less I want to root for either of them. I support any fighter to make as much money as they possibly can. It's just not something I care to follow as a fan. It's hard to imagine guys like Tyson and Holyfield going back and forth online or posting up their diaries like a couple of high school chicks. Wilder and AJ seem to think they have reached Mayweather-Pacquiao status where they can string along the public, but neither of them are really that proven, and both of their biggest wins came against 40-year-old opponents coming off long layoffs." I got news for you. Me and my man Rick have not agreed all the time. Rick, and he's a Dolphin fan, and I've come to like the Dolphins, at least when I used to spend a little more time in Florida. But I can't agree with his statement more than what he just said. He is 100% correct, and I agree with him that, both Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are nowhere near Mayweather-Pacquiao status, and they have no business stringing along the boxing fan and holding the sport hostage because, unfortunately, as goes the heavyweight division, so goes boxing. I agree with this email, and I hope that and I also agree with the fact that why should we be subjected to their negotiations out in the open? That should all be done behind closed doors. And quite honestly, real fighters make the fight happen. If Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder truly wanted to fight each other and weren't afraid of the risk that's involved from both of them, then this fight would have already been made. I don't blame just the promoters. I don't blame the networks. I don't blame just the managers. I blame the fighters first, because at the end of the day, Sal, you've said it all along, it's up to them to make the fight.
And what fight? It happens. It happens. And I want to say that I feel that these two fighters really do want to get in the ring and face each other. And it should have already been signed, sealed, delivered. However, like I said also, we're getting a lot of the fluff without the stuff. This is their self-marinating period. And do I think it's as big as a Mayweather-Pacquiao? Let's be realistic. Mayweather-Pacquiao, we know was 5 years too late. I mean, it still had the sizzle, it still had the pop, it still had the flair, and everybody wanted to see the fight and anticipated what was going to happen. Here, I'll tell you, it has similar remnants of that kind of event, because it is the biggest fight that we could talk about now, especially since Canelo and Triple G kind of fell through the cracks easily. So I wouldn't say maybe it's quite as big, but it does resonate high volume, and I think it can be a real mega big fight that we as fans need to see, and we're going to be hungry to see. So we'll see what happens. I hope.
Yeah, me too. I hope so too. Anyway, we have it's that time for tomorrow. Let me just give you a heads up. Tomorrow we're going to be doing our blast from the past. Vinny Pazienza. We got Larry Hazard scheduled to join us.
Vinny.
I got an update on the Saddam Ali fight, which I am going to be attending. And I'm a little disappointed, but we'll talk about that. And also I got a point about how boxing smoke screens us. And I'll point it out with a fight that was announced in the female division, even though I'm not, that following of the female ranks anymore. But I'll give you an example of that. And also, in case you all were wondering, the WBC has announced a secret nutritional diet that you should have. So we'll get to that tomorrow as well. But first, today's trivia question. It's a tough one. I did receive some answers, but none were right. So if you're the first one to answer this correctly, you will win a copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. I got several other copies left to give out, so we're looking for a winner. So if you're the first one to email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, you'll win your very own copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game, the same game that Alex Perpali uses for our Blast from the Past, and we'll be using it tomorrow when we talk about Vinny Pazienza. It's a who am I question, and it's a tough one. I once stopped the undefeated record of a fighter. Then a week later, I beat his brother. Who am I? I once stopped the undefeated record of a fighter. Then a week later, I beat his brother. Who am I? If you're the first one to email me the correct answer, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, you'll win your very own copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. You want to give this one a shot, Sal?
Did Jack Dempsey have a brother?
No. Good try, though. Good try. Good try. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Did he have a brother? But it's not. He's not.
Did he have a fighting brother?
He's not. He didn't.
That's the first hint. That's a great hint, because first you'd have to see what two brothers were in the same weight class or thereabouts, and you could arguably say maybe the Spinks. See who the common denominator is there. You could look at what other brothers fought.
Well, let me
brothers.
let me throw this at you. It all depends not only if how many fighters had brothers, but what era. Because at one time there was a lot of brother combos, and then that also falls under the old how many weight classes. When there were 8 weight classes, theoretically that could be 3, different weight classes today, maybe even 4. So stop
I'm
trying.
thinking it's an older fighter.
Stop giving out hints. We're not even giving out hints yet.
I'm going to find his question. We're going to whittle it down.
Yeah, you're going to con the right answer and get somebody a free copy of the Title Bout Championship.
What's over your shoulder?
Yeah. Hey, listen. Just anybody can decipher little hints that Sal's trying to squeeze out of me. But if you're still the first one to email me, Billy at talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com, you'll win the prize. So make sure you give a shot at that one. Hey, on this day in boxing history, May 1st. Can you believe that we're in May 1st? I
can't believe it's May 1st.
In 30 days, we're going to be halfway through the year. Unbelievable. On this day in 2004, Kelvin Concrete Davis knocks up Urza Sellers in the 8th round to win the vacant IBF World Cruiserweight title. Took place in Miami, Florida on this day.
Did he have a brother?
Who, Davis? No, it wasn't Howard. Yeah. On 2004. On this day in 1983, Edwin Rosario wins a 12-round decision over Jose Luis Ramirez to win the vacant WBC World Lightweight title. That took place in I don't know where it took place. I can't read my own script, but in any event, he won. On this day in 1982, Santos Laciar knocks out Juan Herrera in the 13th round to regain the WBA World Flyweight title. Took place in Mexico. On this day in 1914, Harry Wills and Sam Langford fight to a 10-round draw in their fight from New Orleans, Louisiana. Several newspapers picked Langford as the winner, and several newspapers picked Wills as the winner. So Harry Wills, Sam Langford, a draw on this day in 1914. And on this day, May 1st, in 1957, the best ever. Sugar Ray Robinson knocks out Gene Fulmer in the 5th round to regain the world middleweight title that he lost to Fuller on January 2nd. That fight was in New York City, and this one in Chicago. So that's what took place on this day in 1957. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. I will tell you guys this. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.